Hello there, and welcome to the second in the series of the Genuinely New Empath series. My name's Gina Gardiner, and I work with leaders and empaths, helping them develop to be the very best that they can be. I've got well over 30 years experience, and this series of videos is to help those people who either didn't know they were empaths, who were very clear that they're empaths, actually help them along their journey, to accelerate their journey. I'm joined, as always on these videos, by Dr. Lizzy Bernthal, an amazing lady. She's a mindset and leadership coach, international speaker, author and well-being, resilience and cultural change specialist who supports authentic leaders and ex-military to stand tall, rediscover their voice, to own all of who they are so that they can soar. So in many ways, our work is very similar, that we work with leaders, that we help them step into being the best they can be. Now, I'm an international best-selling author. I'm also the host of the W4CY TV and radio show. In the first video, we talked about what is an empath? Are you an empath? But in this video, we're going to talk about awareness and, why is it important to know that you're an empath and what do you need to be aware of? So I'd like to set this up really by identifying what I believe to be the case. I think empaths are uniquely placed at this moment in time in our history because they have a big job to do. We are moving into a new era of consciousness. Those of you that are familiar with the term, that we're moving into a time where feminine energy is going to be the predominant one, having had thousands of years where it's been male logical energy, which has been the predominant energy. Now, let's just bust a myth before we start. That feminine energy is not just about women. Men have feminine energy, women have masculine energy. And actually the important thing is around the balance. But being aware that you are here and that you have a great purpose, I think is really important. And ultimately, you have a choice to make. Everything you do is a choice. Even not choosing actively is a choice. Empaths have a job to do. The problem is that many empaths believe that they're not good enough. That was one of the myths that we talked about in the first video. And so they hold themselves back. They don't step out into the light and broadcast in and use their power. And because of that, they're not only holding themselves back, they are holding back the people that they would have helped, and in turn, the people that those people would have helped. And we are at a critical time. If you look around the world, there's dissension, war, famine, the things that we would like to eradicate. And they are all predicated on fear. Fear of lack, fear of not being enough, fear that somebody else will take what we have, fear of people who are different. And I believe that empaths have an incredibly important job to do in order to help move things forward, to help us along that continuum where fear's at one end, love's at the other. Lizzy, I know, is a very powerful leader. All right, she's got so much experience. So Lizzy, I want to ask you, what is your view around the role that you have to play in the world? What's your purpose? What is it you're aiming to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed throughout my whole career. I think there's a fundamental thread throughout my whole career, from when I was nursing to research to now having my own business as a coach. And it's very much giving people a voice. So, and I know that is because with lots of reflection on my life, that I was at one time in my life, I never felt I had a voice. And so when I found my voice, it's so liberating. So my mission is to help leaders to stand tall, as you said, own who they are, because it's taken me a while to own who I am. And once you own who you are, then you can change the world. And that's my mission, is to get rid of toxic leadership, because I have unfortunately been exposed to it in several occasions so grateful for it, because it's made me who I am. And you know, any adversity makes us stronger, and I totally believe that. So, but sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it can be quite a painful process. So anything I can do to short circuit and give them tips and share ideas and so forth, so that they can short circuit their process, so that they haven't got to wait till they're a lot older before they realize all this stuff.
It's interesting, isn't it, that our divine purpose, and I believe it is a divine purpose, has very similar tones to it. For me, empowering people to step into being the best version of themselves is vital.
100%.
But of course, your best version of today is the foundation of the best version of you tomorrow or the day after, because you're constantly growing, aren't you?
100% every day. Yeah.
But also for me, I think my role is to help leaders become leaders of leaders. Because like a bee fertilizing a flower and then moving on to fertilize other flowers, leaders have the capacity, particularly if they're aware, and I believe particularly if they're empaths, and that they are able to draw upon not only their experience, their skills and expertise, but also to be able to draw on that inner wisdom and to have a connection to source, which then opens up, and you then have the opportunity to tap into universal wisdom, because we are all connected. So my role, my passion and my purpose is to positively impact on leaders, to enable them to become the leader of leaders, to step out into the light, to fulfill their true power. And it's one of the reasons why we're working together, because you are a leader of leaders. And you know, my work, I hope, is to support you in your growth, but also recognizing that in helping other people to grow, that we are also individually growing ourselves. So, you know, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to work with you. And if you're watching this or you're listening to this, think about your role. Think about what is your purpose. And if you're not clear about your purpose to start with, well, you know, don't worry. Just be curious. Get present with what your inner voice is telling you. Not the inner voice that nags and says you should have done this and you shouldn't have done that, but the inner voice that's saying, yes, you're here to do something. And to recognize that the only thing that's going to limit you is you. Ultimately, you are the common denominator in your life. You go into every moment of every day, and it's your choice, your active choice, how you show up. And you can choose to just let things drift, and many people do, but recognize that that is also a choice, and that every choice has consequences. And often it's when you let things drift that the consequences are most far-reaching, isn't it? Today we're going to talk about awareness, because being aware means that you then have choice. If you are completely oblivious to something, you can't do anything about it, can you? And many people go through life blinkered with things over their ears. They can't see things that are right in front of their face. You're recently come to the realization that you are an empath.
Yeah.
What's that awareness that you are an empath? What's it done for you?
It's an interesting question. I think my purpose gets stronger every single day. I think that's been really amazing. And I suppose I'm learning more and more that this is not about me. This is never about me. It's what contribution I can make to the world. And I think by having that viewpoint, it stops us being in that negative place of feeling not good enough, because we haven't got time for that anymore. You know, we haven't got time to indulge in our own stuff, because every time we're indulging in our own stuff about not feeling good enough, can I do this? Will I ever make this work? We're not out doing our work to support others. And I suppose that's been a massive shift for me. Even though I was doing that before, it's almost like this is now my 100% duty. I have no time to indulge in this rubbish that I was in before, because I'm not helping the world, and that's my mission. So if I start being self-indulgent and saying, oh, I don't feel great today, every minute of every day, that's when I'm not helping others.
I think that's really, really important. And what I'd also like to add is my belief and my understanding that we are at a time of acceleration. And those empaths who choose to step up and get out of their own way and get on with the job that they're here to do have the opportunity to accelerate not only their journey, but to expand their power and to evolve into ever more powerful leaders and empaths. But the window of opportunity is small. And so if you don't choose to do it in the now, you're going to get left behind. Yes, of course, you will have some impact, but nothing like the impact that you could have when you choose to accelerate your journey. And I think for me, be aware, self-review is just so important. Be aware of those patterns. Patterns of thinking lead to patterns of emotion, behavior, and language. So, if you're not aware of all of those self-limiting beliefs, then they will perpetuate. 95% of most people's thought processes are habitual. They don't cross the conscious mind at all. And so people are in reactive mode, which very often leads to being in victim mode. And so they can't do anything about it. So one of the concepts that I share with people, it's not mine, it came from my mentor, Ali Nicole Wow, is be the journalist in your own life. So if you were a journalist and you had been told to report on a celebrity or perhaps on one of the royal family or the president of America, you would get to know that person, wouldn't you? What they do, when, how they do it, when they speak, how they dress, what they eat, who they meet. So start to be the journalist in your own life. But there's a caveat. And the caveat is you do it without getting into all of the stories and the judgments about, oh, I shouldn't have done this, or I didn't do that soon enough, or that wasn't good enough, or, oh, I can't do this. It's about making those judgments, recognizing that when you get into those, then you are limiting yourself very, very significantly. So it's being aware, it's looking at it and thinking about, well, I now have a choice. I can continue to do those things, or I can choose to do something very differently. And it is actually as simple and as complicated as that. Simple because either you do or you don't. It's you can't have a halfway. But complicated because people put so many obstacles in the way. Love to hear your thoughts about being aware of your own habits and how they can get in the way.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And we all have moments where we feel, well, I certainly do, where you have those down moments where you think, can I do this? And all that negativity kind of kicks in. But I also have, I suppose, being a coach and all the work that I do with clients, is I'm totally aware that is simply protection. It's simply from a childhood belief where something didn't go right, where we set up that trigger that we're not good enough or whatever. If I was good enough, that wouldn't have happened to me. And that's purely protection. So once we kind of notice that, and I always imagine that it's like an ET character. Some people have them as human with names. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. That's the sort of like, I'm not good enough, like you're rubbish, you're useless, all that stuff. And then there's the big white owl, or whatever you want to call that, of the best version of ourselves. And so that's what I visually think of, is like, actually, back off today, thank you very much, goodbye, I need to shoot you, you're out your way, I'm out the way, because I'm on my mission, nothing's going to stop me. And it's just even having those sort of conversations in our heads. And once we've got the awareness that absolutely you have a choice. Do I have a choice to stay feeling miserable and rubbish and awful, or do I want to just do my stuff? And the more for me personally, the more we do the stuff and just move into that energy, you realize you can do it in seconds. You don't have to be indulging in this negativity. Literally, you can notice it, let it go, boom, gone. And that's the power, I think, of awareness.
I think it's incredibly powerful. One of the things I would say is that many people get caught up in the ego stuff, you know, that fear stuff. Yeah. And our ego has one purpose, as you said, it's to keep us safe. And it goes back to caveman and women time when, you know, everything that was different was a threat, quite literally a threat to life. And one of the biggest challenges was if you were ostracized from the group because you knew that you couldn't survive. And so that sense of belonging is so important. And I think so many people, that fear of looking silly, looking stupid, not belonging, is what drives their behaviors. And that's simply your ego. So for me, rather than shooting the ego or whatever animal, make friends with it. You know, reassure it that actually you are safe and it is safe, that you're just doing something that's different, which may feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar is very much easier to manage than scary. And so the more you deal with things, the more you do them, the more familiar it becomes. And there are 2 or 3 little constructs that I use myself and I use with clients that they found really, really helpful. So I'm going to share them. First and foremost, you have to be aware of the patterns, all right? Because if you're not aware, that you're not going to go anywhere. So actually set the intention that you are going to be observing yourself, no judgment, really important. And over a few days, many of you may journal, and I've got lots of journals out there that can help you, that you actually capture those patterns of behavior. And in the journals that I've created, it lists all of the common patterns. I've no doubt that there are more, but there are loads of patterns in there. I'll show you in a minute. And then be aware that there is a better way. And so think about, if I'm not doing the pattern, how would I like it to be? Okay. Now, another myth that people think it's got to take hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks and years and years and years and lifetimes. Okay. Now, whether you're religious or not, I'm sure most of you have a recollection of the story of Paul on the road to Damascus. He didn't believe that Jesus was alive. Jesus approached him and said, hello. And he didn't believe he was alive until he showed him the marks in his hands where the bolts had gone through. And in that instant, he had a paradigm shift. He had a shift and he never went back. And it's entirely possible for you to do that. But what many people do, and many empaths, is they get caught in the quicksand of trying. I'm trying to do this. And they believe the myth that they are trying. But I have a drink of water here. If I said to you, if we were in the same room, I would put that drink of water on the table and I would say to you, try and move it. What then happens is that people always move the glass and I say, no, that's not trying, that's moving it. And it usually takes 4 or 5 attempts before suddenly the penny drops that it is not in the efforting in your head of trying. Move it or don't move it. But don't get caught in the quicksand that I'm actively making a difference just by trying. Okay. The second thing that goes with that so easily is if you imagine a line, above the line, you're operating in a holistic way, in a way that is empowering, that your core values, and it's important to know your core values, that you are operating in line with your core values. Now, we're all human, and there are times when we all fall below the line. We go into, it's not fair, victim mode, I'm frightened, I'm feeling jealous, I'm feeling whatever. So be aware when you're going below the line And the idea then is that you immediately, once you're aware, what do I need to do to get me back above the line? And it might be that you need to go for a brisk walk, or give yourself a strong talking to, or do something that makes you laugh. Break the state and get yourself above the line as quickly as you can. But that awareness is vital, because without the awareness, you can't do anything about it. So becoming aware of your purpose, really important, because that acts as the North Star on those difficult days when you don't want to get out of bed. I bet for you, even those days, your sense of purpose gets you moving, doesn't it?
Yeah. No time to stay in bed.
So know your purpose, and then start to recognize your own patterns. Now, the first in the series is called Harnessing Your Power as an Empath. Okay, it's a journal, it's got an introduction, and within that I share with you a whole range of different myths and patterns of behavior, and then there is a journal that helps you deal with that. So all of the books, they are sequential. There's Harness Your Power as an Empath, and then Stepping into Your Genuine Power as an Empath, which takes you to the next stage, and then Accelerate Your Empathic Potential. And I'm just finishing number 4, which is about helping you to soar and fly as an empath. The important thing is for you to take control of your own life, not in a negative way, but in a completely positive and constructive way. So Lizzy, you've got lots of gems in terms of getting people to be more aware of themselves and what they're doing. Do you have any strategies that you've used that have been particularly helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, doing your challenge for a start, that's a great start. I think it's just noticing, noticing. And so questioning your thoughts, questioning when you're not feeling great. Just be gentle with yourself, but question. And do I need to stay like this? And is this being indulgent? Now, sometimes we sort of want to indulge in it but only let it be a few minutes, not days and days and days. And the confidence you get by moving yourself out of that state is huge. And then it just becomes a habit. It's like everything, like you're imagining when you're showering, you've got that light. It becomes a habit. And once you generate that habit, you generate that energy out. And then people start picking it up. And it just, and I'm very lucky, people often talk about my energy, my positive energy, but it never used to be like that. No. And so it's just acknowledging that we are energy, as we've already discussed, and we have a choice what energy we want to be in. And it's the noticing. That's the goal for me, because when we notice, we can do something about it.
It's absolutely, you are already, by watching this video, you are taking action to move yourself forward. It is evolution. And wherever you start from doesn't matter. It's what you do with it and how you move yourself along that really makes the difference. And starting with you, for me, whatever leader you are in, whatever capacity, whether you're an empath or not, you start by leading yourself. And the first part of leading yourself is to have an understanding of who you are and how you show up on a day-by-day basis. And a really good place to start is to be aware of how your beliefs are driving your life. Your beliefs about yourself, about other people, about money, about deserving success, and all of those things. And another myth is that many empaths believe it's wrong to charge, and they're always poor. Their relationship with money is fairly toxic because they have this belief that they are supposed to just give and give and give and give and give. Actually, the reality is very different, that what you're offering is of huge value, and that by recognizing that value, that doesn't mean to say you don't do stuff for free or low charge, but it doesn't become the only thing that you do. That actually you are designed in your DNA, in your empathic DNA, to have an abundant life. One of the things I find quite interesting is how often empaths will talk about the abundance of the universe, but they believe that they don't deserve it. And as a result of that, they don't get it. We'll talk more about that in later videos. So I'm going to bring this to a close today. And one of the questions that I'm going to ask you to think about over the coming hours, days, weeks is, how aware are you? How open are you to stepping into your own power and to developing yourself as an empath, as a leader, so that you can fulfill your divine destiny? We look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we're going to be exploring how you can take this forward. So Lizzy, thanks once again for joining me.
Thank you.
Brilliant to have you. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye now.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.